Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. This week, flying solo and talking about New York, New York, which is a musical from Martin Scorsese, which is very interesting. But we'll get to that in a second, because if you haven't watched the show before, we have 3 segments. We have coming attractions, and then we have our feature of the week, and then wrap up with some recommendations. So this week, our coming attractions for the weekend of October 29th, which also is Halloween weekend, so that's exciting. There's definitely some creepy movies coming out just in time for that weekend, and we have Antlers, which I was very close on picking as my most anticipated film because Scott Cooper and Guillermo del Toro. We have Army of Thieves, which is that prequel spinoff of Army of the Dead coming to Netflix. There's Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. The Souvenir Part 2, which is something that from Joanna Hogg, who has Honor Swinton Byrne and Tilda Swinton in it. There's a lot of things coming out this weekend. And I've also seen some positive reviews popping up for A Mouthful of Air. But my most anticipated film, this one was pretty easy, was Last Night in Soho, which is Edgar Wright's new film, which is a horror film where Thomasin McKenzie plays a young woman who seems to be like, when she's sleeping at night, transported back into the past, but she's inside the body of Anya Taylor-Joy, and some dark and horrible things happen in the past that she's trying to figure out and solve in the future. And this is very 60s, got those pin drop music choices and all those kinds of things, plenty of style. It looks fascinating, and I'm very excited for it. I know the reviews have been coming out, and it's not the best reviewed Edgar Wright film, but I'm very excited about it. It looks like a lot of fun and a really cool premise, and the filmmaking is going to be really impressive, and so is the music. And I'm very excited about it. So that's why I picked Last Night in Soho as my coming attraction. There's definitely a lot to look forward to this weekend, though. So hoping to catch as much as I can. Have a wedding to go to this weekend, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch as much as I would like, but we'll give it a try. But getting into our feature of the week, we have New York, New York. And this is a musical from Martin Scorsese, focusing on an egotistical saxophonist and a young lounge singer who meet on VJ Day, the day that we defeated Japan and they surrendered in World War II, and they embark upon a strained and rocky romance, even as their careers begin a long uphill climb. And this film focuses on Robert De Niro, who plays this young saxophonist named Jimmy Doyle, and then you have Liza Minnelli, who plays Francine Evans, who is this talented young lounge singer. And obviously Liza Minnelli is a very talented singer and got a lot of attention 5-ish years before this or so because of Cabaret. So she has that track record of being a really talented singer and big film star. And this is a very interesting second follow-up collaboration to Scorsese and De Niro's Taxi Driver, which was the last film that I talked about on the show. And that's it's a very interesting change of pace because, this is a musical, and which is interesting because this film has basically 2 big parts. The first part of this film, because this is a 2-hour and 30 some odd minute film, is a music drama. There's in-scene musical performances. There's singing, there's saxophone playing. It isn't a musical where it's everybody kicks into dance and singing kind of thing, but it's also focusing more on their relationship and also them trying to grow their careers. So I was a little surprised because I'm like, I heard this is a musical and it didn't really feel like a full-blown musical. Like, it felt like a drama with music playing in it. And then the final part of this film, it kicks into full-blown musical, and you have Liza Minnelli doing a lot of singing and dancing and other characters. And because she's in the show, New York, New York, and you have her, like, performing the song, New York, the theme from New York, New York, and, like, obviously, she kills it, because she is a very talented singer. She's a very different kind of singer than what I'm used to for the song specifically, you know, Frank Sinatra. And, like, Frank comes on, like, that deep crooning voice, just starting off with, like, start spreading the news, and just going out that way, and, like, Liza Minnelli, like, milks it. And she really shows off her singing abilities throughout this film. So, like, you feel that there's quite a few scenes throughout the film where she's singing. And that's one of the highlights of the film, is the music going on in here. And what's so impressive, too, is that you notice very quickly that Scorsese has an eye for filming musical performances. And which is interesting because my next film that I'm going to be talking about is his music performance documentary, The Last Waltz. So, like, he's showing early on that he has this eye for being able to watch and capture a musical performance, and it's something that becomes a passion of his, and he does on and off throughout his career, is doing concert films. And this particular film, how that camera moves while the musical performances are going on, the intimacy, capturing the intensity, and, like, is De Niro really playing the saxophone? I don't know. Maybe not. But, like, you can feel it. Like, you can feel that acting. He's really giving into it. If he's really not playing, he's definitely giving into it. And obviously, Liza Minnelli is really singing, and you can feel the energy. And the filmmaking in those scenes is really impressive. And then you have these musical numbers towards the end of the film for this musical that Francine is in. And you have, like, Jimmy sitting in the audience watching her doing her thing at this point in their careers and at this point in their lives and their relationship. And Scorsese really does have an impressive eye for, like, framing musicals, because, like, he is a really talented director, obviously. Like, that goes without saying at this point, but you see the impressive filmmaking. And the musical numbers have a lot of energy, they're shot well, and you also see other camera works throughout the film, like a lot of big crane shots, like this crane shot over, I think it might be Broadway in New York City, as everybody's celebrating VJ Day, the day that the Japanese surrendered, and everybody's, like, living their high life, and that camera's just, like, craning over top of them, and you're just taking it in. And then you have this big ball, this big dance, this big party going on, and it's a giant, wide open, high ceiling ballroom, and you have those camera shots on the crane multiple times as it follows, like, that focal point. You see De Niro navigating through, and that's throughout the film. You see multiple times him trying to navigate large spaces and that crane just following with him. And it's interesting because I saw a couple of those kinds of shots in Paul Schrader's The Card Counter, and it's just like, well, he learned from Scorsese. From a directing standpoint, or at least work with Scorsese, and, like, they have a lot of those sensibilities. Obviously, like, Schrader wrote his last film. He definitely didn't write this one. This is definitely no Schrader Scorsese film. But it definitely still is a Scorsese film, because here's the thing. You have all the technical aspects. You can see this, like, Scorsese has his fingerprints all over this. You have these musical numbers, you have these musical performances, and the intensity, they're really well done. But this is a rocky romance from the start. Like, they should not be together. But one last technical aspect is, like, because they meet at this this celebration, and you just look at everybody in, like, the production design in this film is impressive. The costumes are impressive. Everybody in their period accurate clothes is just so realistic and very engrossing, and you feel like you're in it. And how the camera moves, you feel like you're in it. And you're there with Jimmy and his old school suit, and him trying way too hard to pick up Francine. And to the point where, like, Jimmy's an asshole. Like, without a doubt. Robert De Niro's character is a complete and utter asshole in this film. And he's really hard to root for and connect with. Just from the start, you can tell, like, he is so pushy, and, like, this is weird to watch today, because it's a very different perspective. Like, yeah, you, like, I'm not even sure, like, at this time, he probably was even still pushing too hard. But, like, he was not saying, like, will not take no for an answer. And it's just like, dude, just move on. And he just will not stop. And you can see how frustrated Francine was getting. And, like, the acting, like, De Niro has this intensity, this drive to him. And you could feel it. There's an actual, like, tangible tension in the air when you're watching him interact with, like, anybody in this film, because Jimmy is not the kind of person that makes good human connections. He's just constantly badgering and pushing and building up tension with people. And you have him sitting there with her, will not leave. And Liza Minnelli gives a really strong performance, and you can feel her frustration, her worry. After a while, you can see that coming upon her. But then, you know, she starts wearing down, and they start dating each other, and throughout the whole film, it's just non-stop, like, when's the next thing where they're going to start having some problems? Like, they're even trying to get, like, married last minute, showing up to this preacher's house, and, like, Robert De Niro, when things get in the way or there's a roadblock, the frustration, the anger that comes over him, and you can see the fear, like, on Liza Minnelli. But, like, De Niro is just like a live wire in this film. And their relationship throughout this whole entire film is so tenuous, and just, when will they break it off? And there's moments in a car where he puts her hands on her, he's, like, screaming at her. It's so hard to watch. Like, Scorsese knows how to capture these really uncomfortable domestic moments. You see it in Raging Bull. You saw it a little bit in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. You see those things, and he really focuses on that a lot in this film, which is a strange contrast to, like, the big musical numbers that are, like, fun towards the end of the film. And the whole entire film up to this point has been either really intense musical performances, because, like, when you watch De Niro performing in this film, like, Jimmy is intense. That saxophone playing is not like a fun doing my saxophone playing. It's like he is aggressive. He's attacking it. And you feel that. And you feel like their whole entire relationship is aggressive and tenuous. And that's why, like, this film is 2.5 hours. It takes a long time to get into the musical aspects of things. It's really well shot. It's really well put together. It's slow paced. It does take a long time to get anywhere. And a lot of the times it's just them, you know, trying to progress their careers, or them trying to barely hold their relationship together. And that feels like every scene. And it's wearing after a while, and you don't feel bad for Jimmy. You don't feel connected to Jimmy. Like, I appreciated De Niro's performance. You feel bad for Francine, but, like, after a while, you're just like, get away. Like, get the hell away from him. And I don't know if this is a film where it's just like, did not love it. I appreciated a lot going on in the film. And, like, I would watch it again. Like, just from the musical pieces, I think, and the filmmaking, it's a watchable thing if you have 2.5 hours. That is the thing, too. It's an investment. But especially when it got into the musical part, it felt like a completely different movie. And I would have been interested to see if what it would have been like seeing a whole movie as a musical from Martin Scorsese. And there's like this big key part where it's just like this solo singing performance, like in the dark, with Liza Minnelli, that's just so powerful and just hooks you. And then that's where the film takes its shift. And from then on, I think it's a really impressive film. Before then, I think, like, narratively and character-wise, it's passable, but it's definitely technically impressive. So this definitely is by nowhere near my favorite Scorsese film, but I'm glad that I watched it. I did have to get it on Blu-ray because I couldn't find it streaming anywhere, so I'll watch it again sometime. But those are my thoughts on New York, New York. Now, getting into our recommendations this week, I have a recommendation for a film that's on VOD right now, and it's called Summertime. And this is basically an anthology film injected with poetry and music. It's a drama. It has comedy in it. And over the course of a hot summer day in Los Angeles, the lives of 25 young Angelinos intersect. And Carlos Lopez Estrada is our director from Blind Spotting and Raya and The Last Dragon. And then so many different writers because it has all these different stories. It feels like such a wonderful love letter and poetry and motion to Los Angeles. And there's a lot of great characters and segments in the film. Not all of them are great, but there's definitely a lot to appreciate in the film. So I definitely wanted to recommend that, and it's a nice little film, and I think it deserves some love. And also for the Halloween season, if you have never watched the film What We Do in the Shadows, what are you waiting for? Go watch What We Do in the Shadows, because Taika Waititi, Jermaine Clement, and even a small cameo from Rhys Darby as a werewolf, the leader of a bunch of werewolves who are werewolves, not swearwolves, and it's just such a funny, quirky, clever run-up of, like, vampire stories. And there's moments where it's kind of, like, legitimately creepy. So there's a lot of fun to be had with it. I love the documentary style of it, and they work it so well. So if you haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows, check it out. And it's such a blast, and it's a perfect movie to watch for Halloween. But those are all of my thoughts this week on Welcome to the Wasteland. I appreciate you all tuning in, and I hope you tune in next week as well when I talk about The Last Waltz. I will be flying solo again. As of right now, if that changes, then you'll have a surprise when you pop in for next week. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.